Yo, what up, guys? Welcome to another reaction video. I'm pretty much getting over my sickness right now. Like I'm finally getting better. Like not being sick. So I've been catching up a bunch of my commissions, a bunch of other stuff like other projects I'm working on. And so I didn't have time to really work on a full video like an art challenge or my podcast or any other kind of usually that I do. So I'm gonna do one more reaction video that it is kind of covering to something I am working on in the future. In the previous video, I said I'm working on like getting better at ink drawing and trying to get better with details and outlining and all this kind of stuff. Well, another thing that I'm writing about or I'm doing is I'm writing my story with my main character think of, and so for me like trying to learn all this, I've been looking at videos how to write a pretty much a main character. So I stumbled to the same creator. I think his videos are really dope, very amazing. Which I will put the link in the description right on top, like original video. And then we're gonna react to this. How to write a perfect protagonist. Protagonist? There you go. All right, so let's start. Let's begin. Hit the like, subscribe, guys, and yeah, let's begin.
The English term of protagonist goes all the way back to an ancient Greek drama, which originally meant the player of the first part or the chief actor. During this time, Greek dramas mostly consisted of recruiting choruses and dancing around. That is until poetics came along, which introduced the idea of one actor stepping out and engaging in a dialogue with the chorus.
YouTube does that.
Later on, we get to see the addition of another actor added to the mix, in which created the idea of dialogue between two characters. As of modern times in film and media, we now have many characters acting in their own separate roles.
Side character,
with the primary
background
role being
character.
that of the protagonist. So to make it clear, in case there were any misconceptions regarding this, the protagonist is the main character of the story, despite good or evil. Now, before we do move on any further to the video, I do want to say if you are new to the channel, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and turn on notifications, as 65% of you that watch my videos aren't subscribed. It would be greatly appreciated, and it truly makes a huge difference. As well, for this final week, will the Masked Man plushie be available? So if you are interested, don't miss out, and go check out the link in the description below.
Oh wait,
now,
this is probably like
of course,
a year
there's
old.
no such thing as
the
perfect protagonist. As in reality, all of that is really up to interpretation, and every character in general has their own faults. So the term perfect doesn't really match up here. It's just used for the title's sake. But still, many times there are many misconceptions, especially in the anime manga community, oftentimes oversimplifying the progression or development of the character. And honestly speaking, this is probably one of the most annoying things possible to see. I don't know where this stigma comes from that people think that good development is people going from non-edgy to edgy, when I think most characters that are like the example of great character development do the opposite of that, but whatever. Moving on though, it needs to be said that each protagonist isn't going to connect with every reader. You can go on and faithfully believe that your protagonist is the peak of the medium, but you would also have to understand that some people aren't just gonna get emotionally invested as you think they would. This is why we have a variety of genres.
That's why when I think about me writing my character to think of, I do hope that people will be able to resonate and relate to this character. But I do understand that that's why you still need to create other multiple characters because they each have like their own favorite, right? Like, on top of my head, if you think about One Piece, people like Luffy, but then there's other people that have like a full fandom that like Zoro, Sanji, or Nami. Like, they each have like their own kind of fandoms. Or if you think of My Hero Academia, not everybody's a big fan of Deku. They like the other characters, like Todoroki or something. So I do understand that, like, as I do hope the main character, the main person will make a good impact, but I do know realistically that not everybody's gonna resonate with the main character. It's like, no matter how good I write him, or you know what I mean. Like, it's always gonna be a fan favorite for the other character, a side character. Because people are, even to this day, still people love like Ace, and he's not really on the One Piece anime or manga as much, right? For certain reasons. At this point, people should know, but I'm just saying, like, there are like certain people that just like that character. Of course, I'm not saying they can't like multiple characters, but I'm just saying, like, they like that. They like that's like their main character they like, pretty much.
Genres filled with multitudes of protagonists that give certain readers the abilities to relate to despite popular opinion. In order to create the perfect protagonist, quote unquote, There's going to be a lot of nuances that have to be structurally layered out for the protagonist. Now, don't see this as specific rules you have to follow. See this as vague guidelines based off of analysis of all the different protagonists I've read and seen throughout media that I'm kind of presenting to you. And the first thing we need to begin with is the character introduction. This
Yeah.
part is important because it gives the reader/viewer the idea of what kind of character the protagonist is. Most of the time in character introductions, the protagonist is likely going to identify with a certain cliche trait or behavior. This
Yeah.
can range from pretty much anything, and having the character introduction given first to the reader/viewer means a lot going forward because we will start to sort of understand some of the character's actions later on. Character introductions can vary in many different ways. Many times, a character's introduction can either be hinted, kind of shown to us, give us an idea of what the goal is, or outright just tell us what it is. And this can
Yeah.
span from a few chapters up until an entire arc. A quick example of this can be found in Code Geass, when in the very first episode we see Lelouch playing chess, and we see him move the king piece first. Little did we know, this would tie into his entire philosophy and how he would carry the plot, taking the course of action and allowing others to follow. Other quick examples can be Luffy and Naruto, who
Yeah.
both give a pretty clear idea of what their goal is for the end of the
Pretty
series.
much.
The idea of the character
So like for me, my character that like I'm still trying to figure it out if like if I'm gonna say the goal right away, like the examples of Naruto or Luffy, or am I gonna say the goal within the arc with like couple like I guess you could say chapters. Um so that's the part I'm still trying to figure out because like there is an idea already. There's a plot. There's a bunch of characters already created, and all that. And I still trying to figure out like for the main character, should I just tell the goals, or should I just go more of like kind of loosey and kind of thing, right? Sort of like Hunter X Hunter, right? His goal was to meet his father and stuff like that, which he kind of did, but it was kind of like a little bit loose in some ways. But yeah,
introduction is to show the personality and the goal of the protagonist for the rest of the series to develop that more. This is pretty simple, and there's not really one way to go about this, so we could keep this segment short and concise as I think it really transitions into the next one, which would be character attachment. Quote, I think there has to be an empathic strike between the reader and the protagonist.
yes.
There has to be something said and known that can connect the reader to this person. Michael Connolly. So this segment might be a little messy, but I'll try to make it as simple as the quote did. From here on, the main goal of the character introduction, outside of introducing us to the protagonist, is to create some sort of emotional attachment. This is where the true beauty of subjectivity plays in art and media, because even though we build stronger attachments to the protagonist as the series goes on, many times our
Mob
investment
Psycho.
in the protagonist comes from what sort of emotional or intellectual message connects with us. For example, it is no secret that I'm a big fan of stoic gone angry characters. Correction, well done angry characters. Now there's more to a character usually than just one emotion. Well, at least there should be. But there will always be emotional biases that we will always have and messages that will connect to us way more than others. In other words, a protagonist that tackles the theme of depression may connect to one individual more than others. And even though it may be well done, the reader may never find that appreciation for said character. What's important though is that your protagonist offers something to somebody. This can be later expanded upon even more through character development and character change, but what matters is that you lead up to that. The moment you introduce your character, give the protagonist a purpose. Here are 5 questions I think you might want to keep in mind while writing and or analyzing a protagonist.
Okay, here we go.
What
All
does
right.
my protagonist want? Why does he or
Okay.
she want it? What's standing in his or her way? What does my protagonist need? And what's at stake if he or she fails? These are just overall general questions.
I mean, there are general, but if I were to like literally sit down and write answers to all these questions, then I will be able to have a lot of the story, pretty much like the concrete of it all like to come together of what I want. Um, ugh. It gets me thinking because like my main characters think of his ability is pretty much creativity and like pretty much imagination with limitations, which he uses the sword staff or what do you call like the handle to control the ability. And there's the villain who's named Monev, backwards of Venom. And his abilities pretty much take away pretty much color and life pretty much. It's kind of like they're the opposite of each other, which is like it's like the basic kind of formula right now of like kind of like a hero and villain at first. But there is certain things I'm hiding about the villain that I'm not showcasing right away. Because I kind of want it to be like, oh, it's obvious, but it's not. It's not gonna be super obvious once like the story gets more like in detail. So, but like the goal, like that's the one thing I'm just trying to figure out because I do have a world planned out, but I don't have the goal planned out fully yet. I want a goal to like make things worth it like at the end. You know, like in Naruto, I want to become the Hokage. That was literally the goal, and every at the end of the day wanted him to become Hokage. Or in One Piece, Luffy wants to become the king of the pirates, and we're gonna see that happen, become the king of the pirates. And I think that's like one thing that we're like, it just that's just a goal, but and there's so much story to explore, all that kind of stuff for them to get to that goal. And I think that's a good way for kind of give you a pinpoint of like an end game kind of thing, right? Like you want to see it happen, but you want to see like how it happens and like very like, oh, it's like what's going to happen? It's gonna change it at the end. Like I don't think so, but like yeah,
questions for the outline of the protagonist, and some authors will admittedly delve under some of these points more than others, but the main
right,
thing that will build emotional attachment is the character's motivation. On the surface,
yes,
what grasps the reader should be the protagonist's personality, but what is truly important, what will truly keep the reader interested in said character, is the character's motivation, and it's a lot deeper than I think some people are willing to think. Some things to take into consideration when once again writing or analyzing the protagonist are these different types of motivations. So these can break down into many different areas. For example, you have their beliefs, their fears, their relationships, desires,
desires,
and
yeah,
usually in between all of that is their backstory. Now, there's subsections to all of that and different types of beliefs and fears and relationships and desires. So as you can see, having a motivation for your character is important. Now, at least every character should have a motivation on
yeah,
top of their personality that will give them the deeper attachment that is needed for the audience. And so once we get a little bit into this character attachment after the introduction, this attachment is built on furthermore through the character development. Quote, "Character is not created in isolation or repose. It is forged through interaction with others
others
in
in
the
the
world."
world,
David
yes,
Corbett.
I
First,
do
we need
agree
to
with
give the
that.
definition of what a static and dynamic character is. A static
The
character is
world
one that does
develops the
not undergo
character.
important change under the course of the story, remaining essentially the same at the end. To make it clear, a static character might go through some changes here and there,
Yeah,
but one can
but
go and
the
look at their current
main,
state now and look back through the beginning, and you can still see that they haven't changed at their core. Usually,
yes,
static characters are limited to changes tied into the plot, in contrast to the dynamic characters. Dynamic characters undergo important change through the course of the story, going through fundamental changes of what their motivation and character is at their core. However, what makes this tricky is progression and development are many times intertwined, especially in the external sense. Shonen manga, for example, are probably best known for these external developments, which the characters go through at first glance with their power-ups and new forms. That's not to say that shonen characters can't go through internal developments. However, the big ones that stand out do tend to be the external ones. Again, the Super
yeah,
Saiyan, Sage
yeah,
Naruto, all of
yeah.
the different forms Ichigo has, and etc, etc, etc. And just to be extra clear, all because a character goes through some massive external developments doesn't mean they can't go through equally big internal developments. However, some good examples of these dynamic characters would be Guts from Berserk and Thorfinn
Oof,
from Vinland Saga, who are definitely going
yeah,
to be in the thumbnail and are probably the best examples in the medium of anime and manga when it comes to the internal character development and a dynamic protagonist. Now, once again, I'm really speaking in these broad terms, and I'm not always bringing up these specific examples because I don't want you to be tempted into thinking these are the only characters that did it right. I want you to
yeah,
think of your favorite protagonist or some of the protagonists that you consider to be the best and see how they kind of fit within these categories. But going back to it, internal developments would go along the lines of changes in goals, the driving force of their quests, and many times questioning the possibility of failure. Once again, being completely different characters now compared to who they were at the beginning, versus a more static character which will go through some external changes here and there and will
yeah.
definitely
Oh,
mature,
that's a good
but at their
example.
core will pretty much stay the same as they were at the beginning. These are characters that are more about changing the world around them than letting the world and their events change who they are. Any sort of development or change in a character can be shown symbolically or literally through imagery or told through dialogue between characters. Either ways, whether static or dynamic, and this is the important part, is that whatever type of change the character goes through, whether small or large, it is made clear towards the audience. Quote, be clear on every character's agenda in the scene, and the agendas in the conflict. Before you write, take a moment just to jot down what each character in the scene wants, even if, as Kurt Van Gogh once said, it is only a glass of water.
Oh. I mean, I kind of did that with the villain and the hero, in my first 2 pages that I wrote for my comic book. So, because I thought about it when I was like drawing out the panels and stuff. I was like, I want to introduce these 2 characters first because they're like the main characters, like the villain and the hero, and showcase like the personalities, within these pages. And I think that's like what I wanted to do, at least for the first chapter, before I showcase the full world and like other places within my story. So that makes sense. That makes clearly sense, because then it gets people like, okay, interested. Like, I want to see more of this character. Why are you doing this more? Well, what's their path? What is gonna happen, etc. So like that, get them to pretty much ask questions for them to like hoping these questions be answered like right away or eventually. Okay.
So I touched on this concept a little more over a year ago now on my video on how to write the perfect antagonist. But the foil and the relationship between the protagonist and the antagonist is the most essential in the entire plot.
Yeah.
In that video, I discussed how the antagonist more often than not serves as the dominant force that pushes the plot. The job of the protagonist is to take action and push the plot further by taking the antagonist to his or her limit, just as previously the antagonist did for the protagonist. In other words, it's one big game of pushing and pulling which leads towards the climax. And it is at the climax where the main character and the main enemy will fight to defend their ideology and protect their motivations while destroying the others. Again, this is a concept I talked more about in my How to Write the Perfect Antagonist video, so if you are interested in that, link will be in the description below. However, this does not simply have to confine to the idea of good or evil. Some of my favorite stories have a protagonist and antagonist that each offer a good perspective on their own ideology and are both each extremely flawed, therefore making their conflict much more nuanced and interesting. However, that is not to say that your typical good versus evil conflict cannot be just as good. In the end, this is all a little bit of literature theory and concepts, if you will, so what matters is good execution. But how do I kind of encompass all of this? What is the goal of writing the protagonist? What is the purpose of the protagonist? In the end, the ultimate purpose of the characters in your story is to give the themes and messages in your story life. Therefore, the ultimate purpose of the protagonist is to serve as the primary character who will allow those themes to be made visible. Therefore, whatever goal you give to your protagonist should be with the intention that you explore those themes throughout their journey. The purpose of the antagonist and the difficulties they go through is to slow down the protagonist from reaching said goal, therefore making the story interesting in the first place. Luffy's goal in One Piece is to become the Pirate King and find the One Piece, if we were to condense it, right? The difficulties that Luffy goes through makes the journey much more credible and memorable. Some characters have a much more nuanced goal like Guts, essentially still trying to find out what his goal is and what the purpose of life is, just like many of us. And I don't think I need to get into what kind of opposition he faced. I've talked about that plenty. So in the end, the protagonist should capture the reader and serve as the clear example of what the story is about. Pushing a memorable plot and providing a character that will stay in the heart of the audience forever. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and let me know if there's any sort of other type of concepts when it comes to writing you would like me to tackle.
So, what I got from this pretty much is like the basic 101 is have a good purpose and something that people will relate to and also ask questions about what's going on within the world. Because if you get people hooked of asking a question of like, what is going on, what is this, like, why are they doing this, it gets to a point where like you want to see a certain thing happen, or you want to see how it happens, what's going on, what's gonna change possibly. Of course, like with Luffy, you already know exactly from A to Z, but you don't know the in between, like how he's gonna get to the pirate has he started to the captain, the king of the pirates, pretty much at the end. So that is something that I will really have to think about more and through for sure, because I do have like a vague idea. Always had I always created characters, I started creating some worlds and some like cities and stuff like that, but I never really like gave everything a what do you call it, like a full purpose. Like what's the point of them going to each place? What's the point of like why are there enemies? What's the point of like the origins of their abilities? All that kind of stuff. So yeah. So that's all. This is a great video. Like trying to get me to really think about like how we're gonna write my main character. I did make a video about me creating the best main character in my YouTube channel. If you guys want to check that out, put it the link description or I'll put it at the end. Because I did create a character. I drew him like three different ways and showcase his abilities, stuff like that. And then there is a new video coming out very soon. Now that I feel a lot more better, that I'll be working on more, is about my comic book, about the first 2 pages, and maybe even more than that. Because I'm gonna go in depth into like my idea and my thought process on this, and these videos does really help me out to kind of like write a good video, pretty much, to explain what my thought process is gonna be. But yeah, that's pretty much it from this one. I like it a lot. I'm liking these videos. They're really helping me out. Trying to write a really good story, because that's all I'm trying to do. I'm trying to write a good story that could like relate to people, and hopefully people are gonna enjoy it. I've been creating these characters for some time now. It's time that I really just want to see them come together and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, if you guys want to see more about that, check out my Instagram or Twitter. I always post artwork that I'm working on there, or characters I created on there, or just my YouTube channel. The art challenges usually do have a lot of my original characters. Me just like painting them and just kind of putting them out there. So yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace out, much love. Check out the original video on the description below, right on top. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace out, much love. And let's see how this story becomes, guys. The think of story. All right, peace out.